Hi, it's Jo here. Just checking that we're all coming on live, coming on Zoom, and I'm just going to just check on my phone to see whether or not it's come on yet. It looks okay. So today I'm going to talk about developing the confidence habit. And I've done this because so many people come to me about they saying they want to improve their confidence, and if people understood what confidence was and what it meant for them, so many other people will increase their confidence and get a instant confidence boost. So I thought I'd come on today just to introduce the topic of confidence. It's huge because, as I said on yesterday morning, that if we have other criteria such as clarity, courage and consistency, we will get automatically more confident. And that's why I wanted to come on and talk about that today, and to help you understand what we're talking about when ourselves or our children say they lack confidence. So let's talk about what confidence is. So self-confidence is trusting your own judgment and abilities, feeling worthy and valuing yourself regardless of any imperfections you have or what others may believe about you. And this is really important because what this shows is our confidence is all about us as a person and how we view our life and our world, on believing that we know best. We don't have to rely on other people's judgments, abilities, and that we feel that what we have is worthwhile and that we value ourselves. And that includes if we have anything that it's like these imperfections. No one is perfect, and we all have these things that we don't particularly like about ourselves. Some things we can change, and that's about having that time to be able to change. Other times we can't, so we have to accept these imperfections, and we also have to accept that we are who we are, and that's regardless of what other people might believe about us, because they don't know what it's like to be us. So when they think what they believe about you or your children is their perception, and that's not the reality. And it's about us being true and authentic to ourselves. And this is what confidence is all about. It's very much about our whole persona of having this trust. But a lot of people get mixed up with what I call self-efficacy. I'm going to talk about that a little bit after this slide. So someone will say to me, I'm not a confident person. And there's two things about this that isn't correct. When we say we're not a confident person, what we're really doing is saying that we as a person is not confident. That's not true. You may be somebody who lacks confidence in some areas. You may be a person who feels that they don't have that confidence, but you're not a confident person. You're not labeled as a confident person. And this goes for anything. When people say I'm an anxious person, I'm an optimistic person, I'm a negative person, you're not. You're somebody who have these thoughts and these feelings. And it's that little bit of change of language is so important, because when we say that we're a confident person or I'm not a confident person, then what we're saying is that whole belief that we have about being confident is the core of everything that I am. And that's not true. We can change that. And as a person, we can't, when we say that it's so important that we recognize that these are states that we have, and they're not actually onto us. And I'm just checking, I've just gone off there. So that also what I wanted to talk about was, it's not just that we label ourselves, but when I ask people and I go, what makes you think, yes, I'm definitely not a confident person, I definitely know that I lack confidence in this area. Well, actually, you don't lack confidence in that area, or you don't lack confidence full stop. You are confident in that particular situation. So when you say you're confident about not being confident, then you're being confident, but you're being confident on the wrong things. And we get into this habit of believing certain things. And this is why it's so important to understand that confidence is a habit. It's the same as everything else. Confidence is a state that we can't do anything about. Confidence is about knowing that this is what it's going on for you. Okay, so we've got to recognize that if it's a habit, it's something that we can change the way that we do it. And we also mislabel it, and that's what I was talking about before. It's a lot of people say they're not confident, but what they're doing is lacking what's called self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is something that we see a lot within sport and performing arts. And the definition of self-efficacy is how well one can execute an action required to deal with a particular situation. So it's very common in situations where we need to perform a skill or we need to perform a task. And I think you might have heard it quite often when people say, I'm no good at maths. Well, I challenge that people are no good at maths. The reason that they say they're no good at maths is because they probably don't enjoy maths, and they probably haven't practiced it, and they haven't put in the effort and the commitment to learn that particular skill. But what it is they just lack that self-efficacy. It's not that they're not confident with numbers, it's just that they don't have that confidence in knowing that they can execute a skill, a maths task, to an extent where they feel comfortable. Because the more and more we know we can perform something, the more confident that we get. But what it does is it affects the choice of activity that we do. So I think I've said this before in one of my videos, is if you think about a young child who is learning how to do a cartwheel, which is something that a lot of children around the age of 3, 4, 5 will start looking at, regardless of whether they carry on and do something in sport. It's something that most children learn at that sort of age. And they all practice it and they'll put all the effort in because all their friends are doing it, and they'll persevere, and eventually they'll master this cartwheel. But then what will happen is they'll then try and do a different task. But that other task, they don't have the self-efficacy to do it because they've never done it before. And they do have that high self-efficacy for the cartwheel. So what do? They'll have a go at that particular task that they're not familiar with, and all their effort will go into the cartwheel. They'll do more cartwheels, and then they'll get better and better at that, and then all of a sudden they feel that they can't do that particular other skill, say a handstand into a bridge. They start thinking, oh, I'm great at cartwheels, but I'm not very good. I don't have the confidence to do that handstand into the bridge. That's because you haven't practiced it enough, because what you're doing is going for the stuff that's comfortable, that you know you can do, which you have a high confidence level in, but not doing the new stuff. But if you do the new stuff, put the effort in, have the perseverance, do the consistency, then you become confident in it. And you could have somebody who's generally confident in their sport or their activity, but they do just lack self-efficacy in a particular skill. So if there's something that they just can't master, then it's not that they don't have the confidence, it's just that they have low self-efficacy to help them to do that particular task or that particular skill. And until they get this self-efficacy, they won't become confident in doing that as part of a bigger picture. So this is my formula. Clarity plus courage plus consistency equals confidence. And when you merge all of these skills together, what happens is you gain the momentum. And what I see so many times, people do not have clarity. Very few people are clear on their goals, if they actually made goals. When I speak to people that I'm working with, I go, what goals have you set for this month? We're coming to an end of the month, so we're going to start in November. So next week, I am going to do the masterclass on goal setting, so that we can start every month, that you can go into that masterclass and see how we can set goals for the month, goals for the quarter, yearly goals that can happen, whether it's in January, at the beginning of a season, a particular part of the year. It doesn't matter when we set the goals. We can have yearly goals starting in November if we want to. But it's about having this vision. Successful people, and a lot of the millionaires or the billionaires that you see have long-term visions. They will set 5, 10, some like 25, and if they're young enough, 50-year goals. So they have this clear vision of where they want to be. Also, so many people don't have the courage to go against their ego. We're told so many times, trust your instinct, or listen to what's going on in your head. And that's great. But what happens if that ego is holding you back? If that ego is holding you back, you've got to have the courage to go against it and trust that you've done everything you need to do to know that this is going to happen. And then so many other people just give up before they start seeing the results. How many times do you think about yourself as well as your children where you've tried something and you keep going, you keep going, and you keep going, but you don't get the instant gratification that you're looking for, and it gets a bit frustration. You get frustrated and you go, this is not worth it. I'm not doing it because it's not working. And then you give up. What you don't know is if you'd have done it another week or another couple of weeks, you would have started seeing the results. So I'm going to go through these all in detail now. So clarity. So this is about setting value-driven goals. We know about goals, but so many people just write goals just for the sake of writing goals. And we make sure that they're smart and that they're measurable and they're timed and they're realistic. But how many of those goals are actually really thought through and are driven by your values? So I'm going to talk about goals next week, so I don't want to go too much in here, but we need to really dig deep. It's not just about setting a goal just because you've been told that you need to set goals. They're about making sure that these goals are aligned with your values. And we've talked about values before, and it's about thinking, what do you want out of your life and why do you want it? And these are the goals that are going to get you there. They need to have these long-term goals. So you need to have these yearly goals and these quarterly goals and these monthly goals, because we need to have that long game. We need to make sure that we're going in the right direction. So that's why we have a quarterly goal, just to see that we're on track, or whether actually our situation has changed and we need to tweak it a little bit. The monthly ones keep us on track even more. They are the ones that give us that motivation to keep going through the month. And then the weekly ones are mainly process-driven goals that we can do so that we keep focused on those yearly goals. And it's so important. And I love this by Stephen Covey. I don't know if you know about Stephen Covey. I'm going to see if I can find his book here. But he's the one who, there we go. It's all stuck. I've got too many books. Stephen Covey is the one, he's got the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And anyone who's in business needs to read that book, because there's some really powerful stuff. And what he talks about is, if the ladder is not leaning against the right wall, every step just gets us into the wrong place faster. Put the spelling there. I check this all the time. It's amazing how you don't see things until you're reading them. And what he's talking about there is, if you don't put your ladder on the right wall, then you're going to go the wrong direction. I like to see this with an aeroplane. If the pilot puts the wrong latitude into his machine into his computer of where he's going for his route, it could be on a completely different direction. And although with an aeroplane they're constantly going off track, they are always in sight of their destination. And this other thing I like is the 6P formula. And what this is proper prior planning prevents poor performance. And it is so important. We all know that planning is something that we need to do, whether it's in work or in school or in life. And I think in sport, sometimes people forget this. We forget that we need to plan for excellent performance. And if we don't prepare, we don't put pressure into our training sessions, we don't have a pre-performance routine, we don't know what we're doing, or we're so under-prepared, we don't have that confidence. But if we know that we've done everything we can to prepare for that particular pressured situation, we will create that confidence. So when I talked about that, setting these goals, and I want to talk about, this is all from Brian Tracy. So how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. And it's I always put this in my head. So whenever I've got a huge project to do, or I've got to do something that I feel a little bit overwhelmed, I always think of this saying is, how do you eat an elephant? If you think about looking at an elephant, think I've got to eat it all, not that you would, but just as an analogy goes, when you think about it as one bite at a time, then you do see that it's a lot more achievable, and you can see that progress. And another thing he talks about, Brian Tracy, is eat that frog. And it's about having the courage to eat that frog. And what he talks about with this saying is, we always have a frog in our life. So whether that's a particular skill that we don't like, or a task that we've been putting on for ages just because we don't want to do it, if we eat that frog first, then we feel that we're satisfied. And it's just having that courage to eat that frog. We know that frog's there. We know that there's that thing that's eating away inside of us, that we know it's got to be done, or a particular skill that we've got to practice that we don't like doing, but it's having that courage just to do it anyway. And another thing that I find that I wanted to put in here is so many people hit this wall of frustration when they realize that they're not getting this instant gratification, that they don't see results straight away. One thing I like to use is people losing weight. When you lose weight, you go to a slimming club and you get weighed, and then that first week you get this huge weight loss. It's false weight loss, even though we know that it's water. Even if you're in that knowledge that you know that most of the time on that first week you've just lost water, it's still a nice feeling because you get that instant gratification. But then what happens with a habit, and it always happens within 10 to 14 days of doing a habit, we reach this wall of frustration because we get fed up because we're not seeing that instant gratification. We don't believe that it's doing us good. We don't believe that we're making progression, and we hit this frustration. And that's when most people quit because they think, why am I doing this? But what we know with psychology is if we can get through this wall of frustration, this wall of frustration is normal, by the way. This is a natural part of creating a habit, is we've got to focus on the long-term goal and not that instant gratification. So if we use the dieting again, when we're out and about and we see this nice big fat cream cake that we really want to eat, we've got that in front of us and it's looking so good, we think, oh, we just want to eat that, instead of thinking about the long-term goal of how important it would be if you lost that weight so you could spend time with your children, playing with them outside, playing football, you know the drill, and seeing that value. So when you're losing weight, you getting value-driven goals that will help you with your family, having that freedom to be able to go and exercise and go for that run that you've always fancied running a marathon, but you know you can't. And these sort of things, these goals that we've done with the clarity of the goals, when you've got the clarity, it's easier to have the courage to go through the things that are holding you back because you can see that long-term vision. And when you've done that, when you realize that, you just have to do it anyway. So it's like eat that frog, practice eating that frog every day, take that imperfect action. It doesn't matter if it doesn't go to plan. All we're doing is doing it anyway to get over that anxiety, that frustration, to keep going. And that leads into the consistency. And this is where most people fail, when they forget to do this. They forget about consistency. Everything that we do is so important that we're consistent. And it's so easy. It's so easy to do something every day, even if it's little things. If it's doing a particular skill 3 or 4 times a day, it's easy to do, it's easy not to do. Because in the moment, we don't see that long-term gain. We just see that actually we get more instant gratification by not doing it rather than doing it sometimes. But the only way to gain momentum, to improve on that confidence, is consistency. So once you've got that clarity of where you want to be, you've got the courage to fight that ego, to just do it against what the ego is wanting you to do, and you do that consistently, you'll gain momentum, you'll gain confidence, and you'll improve your performance. Long-term goals are more important than short-term gratification. So how do we gain that momentum? It's that little and often. It's no good going out there and going for, say, for example, going for a run or doing a particular activity that you've not done before, that you feel that you're not confident in doing. If you go out there and really go for it on one day, and then you don't do it for 4 or 5 days, you're not getting that momentum. You need to do a little bit at a time, little and often. And it always reminds me of Paul McKenna talks about the water pump, and he relates how we get this momentum by how we get water out of a water pump. So when you start pumping with a water pump, nothing comes out. You have to keep pumping and pumping, and you could just go think, oh, there's no water there. But if you carry on pumping, what will happen is you'll get a little dribble, and then it'll start flowing smoothly. A little bit of water comes out, and then it starts gushing. But what happens when you stop that consistency of that pumping in a water pump, the water stops coming and flowing out. And you have to start at the beginning again. So you have to keep pumping, pump, and then at least you know, you have that confidence that you know that something's going to come out, but you've got to keep going. And it's like you've got to go through the cycle all over again, have the little drips of water, the little flow, and then you get the running water. But if you keep pumping on this, even though it might be just a little bit, then you'll continue, you'll get that full flow of water every single day, because you're just keeping that pump going and going and going. But if you then stop and then you're back to the beginning again, what you're doing is reinforcing any doubt that you can't do it. So you're saying to yourself, I knew I couldn't do this. If we go back to the weight loss situation, just because I've been doing that throughout, so many people say they lose the weight and they can't keep it off. And then they talk to themselves, oh, I can't do this because it's just a yo-yo dieting. It's because they don't keep that consistency, because what happens is we see the result and we think that's it. Whereas actually, if we need to work on that situation of our healthy diet and losing that weight, you have to keep concentrating. You need to commit to a lifestyle change and not lose the weight and then go back to the old way of thinking. Because what happens is, if you go back to the old way of thinking, you go back to the old results. And that's why people take off all the weight and then they put it all back on again, and then feel like they've not done it. They have to then start from the beginning and lose all the weight again, and before they get that momentum. But it's not that they can't do it, because they did it the first time. If you've learned any skill, if you've learned one skill, you can learn another skill. You can do it, but you have to keep it up. The reality is, if you feel that you can't do something, it's because you've not kept up that consistency, that momentum. And the more you get that momentum, the more confidence you'll have in that particular task. And what will that create is natural confidence. Sometimes I'll call it authenticity confidence. It's something that you're doing naturally. So many people, I'm sure everyone's heard of fake it before you make it. That's faking confidence. That's our artificial confidence. But what we want, and what our children will want, is that natural confidence. And if you do these steps that I've told you about today, you'll see that confidence grow. But that natural confidence develops. It takes time. It takes effort. You've got to create that habit. You've got to do things consistently so that you gain this confidence. But what you'll find is you'll become relaxed. You'll be authentic. What I mean by authentic is you'll be true to yourself. It will feel comfortable. You won't feel that you're putting on this front. It will just happen. And you'll be full of faith, because you know that what you're doing, you've planned well, you prepared well, you have that habit instilled in your mind, so you know that you're going to be able to perform whatever it is that you're looking to perform. And this is why I talk about Lewis Hamilton. He oozes natural confidence, and that's because he's just won 92 Grand Prix, the most anyone ever has. And if you can't have natural confidence there, then you can. And but it doesn't just happen like that. I saw on the interview when he was a young boy talking about the clarity of his goals. He knew exactly where he wanted to be. He's probably been dreaming about this moment for years and years and years. He's set goals. He's been clarity. It's very, very clear of what he wanted to achieve. He's had the courage. And I'm going to talk a bit about courage, because it's that physical courage. So for Lewis Hamilton, he's had to have the courage to push himself within quite a dangerous sport. So although he will know that if he gets it wrong, then he could kill himself. He could crash and he could kill himself. Not everyone who's trying to perform a task and achieve a goal will be in that situation, but there was physical risk in him having that courage to go and do it anyway. So his brain's probably going, oh, you can't go that little bit faster, because what will happen if you get that? I'm guessing they probably have some kind of strategy of the way that they go around the track, the racetrack, and he'd probably looked at that, and he's probably got really clear on what he needs to do to get those extra seconds that's so valuable for him to be in the lead. And then he's been doing it consistently, and he'll practice it. And what will happen is he will then get more and more confident, and the more Grand Prix wins he gets, the more confident he gets, because he knows that he's doing it right and he's getting that result. And the more that we work on it, the more consistent the results are. So we get used to that. But if he doesn't win, and he doesn't win every single time, does his confidence go back? No, because he knows that there are going to be times, due to his mental state, environment, situations, that he's not always going to win the Grand Prix. He's not won every single Grand Prix that he's been in. So, but he just trusts that he has to be consistent in his performance, and he's consistent in what he's learned and what he needs to do. And then he gets this momentum that going on at the moment, where it feels like no one can beat it, but people can beat it. Because what will happen, if you think about things like Tiger Woods, where something takes that focus away from what you want to achieve, or if you're like we said about losing weight, it's really hard to stay there. And it would be interesting to see how he then works and his performance, how that's affected when he's challenged, because people will challenge him, and how he keeps this momentum going, or whether he has a dip. Because what happened with Tiger Woods, personal situations, he was on fire, and then because of that he lost his focus on his golf and his performance went down. And what I want you to do, and your children to do, is look at ways that you already have natural confidence. What things do you do where you go, actually, I feel really confident in doing that stuff? And just look at actually how many things that you do that you're confident about. It could be something really simple as making a cup of coffee or making a cup of tea. There's quite a technical element to making a cup of tea. If you come from North or Midlands, where I come from, you've got to make sure that you've got enough milk, the right amount of milk in there, right strength in there, that the water's at the right heat. So, but a lot of people would be confident in in getting that right, because they do it every day. It's fine. And I just want to talk about this artificial, this fake it till you make it, which don't really like that comment. It's more about artificial confidence. There is sometimes a need to project this. So if you've got an audition, you have to probably put a little bit of artificial confidence in there in competitions. But what happens when we project a lot of artificial confidence? It takes up a lot of energy, it takes up a lot of effort, and it's something that we can't do constantly, because it's just not natural to articulate that kind of confidence that we see in this sort of situation. But there are times when we do need it. So if we can practice that artificial confidence along with the natural confidence, we can reduce the amount of times that we need to be artificial when we want to project confidence in areas that we're not, and actually show that confidence where it's quite natural, because believe me, we can tell the difference. So I've got an activity for the end. So this is tapped into your natural, authentic self. This is a Paul McKenna thing. It comes from NLP. I love it. I had a bit of a debate of whether using this or imagining being a batsman going out to bat, or coming back to bat into the pavilion when he's got 100. But I thought I'd go for this one, which is, imagine what your life would be like if you were comfortable about who you were and who you are. So how are you sitting? How are you standing? How are you holding yourself? And I want you just to imagine that. You can close your eyes if it helps. If not, you can be lying down, you could be standing, you could be sitting. It doesn't matter. Just get into a comfortable place and just imagine what life would be like if you was comfortable with who you are, what you look like, how you felt. So how are you sitting? How are you standing? So for me, when I feel like really confident, my shoulders back. I feel I can feel it in my chest. I feel like my chest feels so open when I imagine that I'm just so comfortable with who I am. And then you need to shift yourself in that position so that you are sitting or standing like that now, so that you feel what it's like to be confident. If you could think of that situation at the same time, because that'll give you that good time when you think, actually, I feel so confident. And what was you saying to yourself? What can you achieve when you're in that situation? And this can be done in all sorts of situations, not just in sport. I remember doing this with job interviews. I had a bit of a difficult situation where I went for interview after interview to get a particular job with the same company, and I was constantly being rejected. In my part, it was rejected, and they were bringing other people in that I knew that I could do a better job, but it was really affecting my self-esteem. And then when I went looking for jobs in other areas, in other companies, I could feel that I felt really unconfident. So I remember this time is I used to work as cabin crew for British Airways, and I'd only been there 2 years, and everyone had told me that you had to be at least there for about 8 or 9 years to become purser. But actually, what the application form said is when the job came up, is that you could go after 2 years. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go. I went into that interview. I was so confident. I knew I'd prepared myself. I had every single scenario that I needed. And I went in there, and it was quite a tough interview, but I had an answer for every single day. And then when I went in to find out whether I got the job, which did, the woman said that they were in a really bad mood that day, and I was the only person that got the job. And they looked at each other and said, we're going to have to give her the job because she was just outstanding. And I always remember that particular situation. And I think for me, if I ever feel that I'm not confident in projecting what I have and what I can achieve, I always go back to that situation. Get that go-to situation that you have that will bring up that natural, authentic self, that natural confidence that you believe that you're good enough for that. And using this activity will bring up that natural, authentic self that you can be confident in being, so that you can then do all the other stuff that you want to achieve. So I hope that helps. Confidence is a huge issue, so I will probably do more things about confidence. But let me have some comments. Put hashtag replay if you're watching this on the replay. Ask any questions that you'd like, and I'll come back and answer them. But I'm going to finish off. Take action, be consistent, and trust the process, because it works. I've done it with so many other people. It's one of those things that I believe is the key to confidence. And you can have so many things with that. So I shall speak to you next week. Let me know. Oh, I've got Q&A tomorrow, of course. I forgot about that. Let me know if you've got any Q&As. Please put some questions down there. It's so much easier for me to do that. And if I don't have any questions, I'm not going to come on, just basically because I'm just talking for nothing, really. So let me know if there's anything you want on the Q&A, and I shall speak to you tomorrow. Take